This podcast is brought to you by Cyberdyne Systems. Cyberdyne, the company of the future. Think about it. What could go wrong?
And we fade into black. That song means only one thing. One thing only. The boys have returned. Nothing worthwhile with Moody and Groo. How are you, my friend?
I am fine. How are you?
Oh.
No, I mean, sorry. I'm doing great.
He's already in character.
Already in character, yeah.
Well,
all is well. We are in New York.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Merrick, New York.
At our home studio.
The Nothing Worthwhile home studio here in Merrick, Long Island. Today, we are going to discuss, it should be an interesting topic, Terminator Dark Fate. Let me throw it over to my colleague, and the floor is yours.
Yes, I am. We're sort of turning the tables this time. I've got the research. I've got the notes. There's not much research, but we're going to really talk about not the Terminator franchise, but Terminator Dark Fate. Obviously, there are going to be callbacks to previous entries, but this is about the current movie and the climate it's been released in. So I'm just going to jump right in.
If you want to call us live, 1-800-MOODY-GROO.
We don't have that technology yet. We are working on it, though. Just a quick
Phil
plug.
From Philadelphia, you're on the air.
Just a quick plug. We are going to set up live feeds in which we will be broadcasting live, so people will be able to call in and like text messages and stuff.
So download.
Moody doesn't even know this.
So download the Nothing Worthwhile app, and
and it's only $9.99 a month, plus a one-time $700 setup. So anyway, in looking towards the future, we are going to go back in the past, and we're going to talk about Terminator Dark Fate. After directing 1984's The Terminator and 1991's Terminator 2 Judgment Day, good old James Cameron returns to the franchise after really going out and making himself the biggest director in Hollywood history in some ways, with two of, at the time, were the most money-making movies ever, Titanic and Avatar. Now he's coming back to Terminator as a producer of the sixth entry in the series, and original Terminator stars Linda Hamilton is coming back after a 3-movie absence. And Arnold Schwarzenegger is also back, of course. He's been, if not the star of all of them, he's been a presence in all of them, even Salvation, briefly. So they're back in this movie, which chooses a bold and probably wise choice in some fashion, chooses to ignore the last 3 sequels. So Dark Fate picks up directly after the events of Terminator 2, at the end of which Sarah Connor and her young son John, played by Eddie Furlong and Linda Hamilton, respectively, they stopped Judgment Day from happening in the year 1997. So the first thing we're going to do is just get it right out of the way. Moody, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Dark Fate?
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Me too. Now, I'm going to give you, before we get into the crux of it, Moody's opening muse. 1 minute. You're on the timer. Give me your thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate. Go.
I enjoyed it. It's the best of the Terminator sequels since T2. With that being said, as I told you earlier, it's not saying a whole heck of a lot. I think there's definitely criticism and plot holes to be made of the movie. I thought there was, again, which I don't like, some political agenda in the movie as well that I didn't enjoy. But I overall found myself, I bought into it. I enjoyed the performances, pleasantly surprised by, I don't even know the actor's name who played the bad Terminator. Thought
Gabriel Luna.
He came across as a babyface killer and did a really, really good job. Overall, the special effects were great. Some moments a little bit cheesy. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed Terminator Dark Fate.
Okay. And my minute to muse. I pretty much have the same thing to say as you. Probably enjoyed it a little more. I really, really enjoyed it. I won't say I loved it. I'm going to say I liked it a lot. I was glued to the screen. I am a huge Terminator fan, just full disclosure. I have found something to like about every single one of these movies.
Even Genesis?
Even Genesis.
Ugh.
What bothers me is why this movie failed. And that's what I really want to talk about.
Why would you say this movie failed?
Well, it failed box office-wise. The franchise is dead.
Is that so?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to lose. It's going to lose $150 million.
But because of its bloated budget?
Because of its bloated budget, and it's not making the kind of money that what would be considered a hit these days. It might top out worldwide at like $120 million. That's nothing.
Okay.
For a tentpole movie like this, that's nothing.
Okay.
I have my theories as to why, but as far as the movie, like you said, I bought into it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was exciting. It was thrilling. The performances were all terrific, and there's very little negative I could say about it. I'll nitpick a little bit, but that's
I have some thoughts about the performances as well.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So, in its opening prologue, which seems to be the catalyst for all the vitriol, in its opening prologue, set a year later after the events of Terminator 2, Dark Fate reveals Sarah and John hanging out happily beachside in Guatemala, where a rogue T-800, played by a young Arnold Schwarzenegger with excellent de-aging effects, which is now the big thing, appears and kills the once future savior of humanity in front of Sarah's eyes before stalking off, its mission complete. Sarah's left in shock, as many Terminator fans were, but the tragedy sets her on a new path toward a different fate as a grizzled, traumatized Terminator-hunting warrior, and opens the door for new heroes, Danny Ramos, played by Natalia Reyes, and Grace, a cyber-augmented soldier, played by Mackenzie Davis, two actresses I'd never heard of before this, to step it up and fight for humanity's future. So this is a twist that Cameron purposely suggested to jar the audience expectations. He's quoted as saying, "Let's take them out in the first 30 seconds. They're sitting in a pizzeria, Terminator walks in, blows them away. You're 1 minute into the movie, and everyone goes, 'Really? You want to do this?' Cameron says, 'I said yes.'" And Cameron wrote the best of the two movies, right? Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. And he's like, you pull the rug out from underneath the entire construct that's been going on for the last 3 decades. And that's their justification. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that first scene. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts about their decision to kill John Connor, how they did it, and when they did it.
Yeah. It definitely caught me by surprise, but it didn't produce the overall emotional effect. Looking back, I was rather ho-hum. Maybe because of the additional sequels, it's sort of been so watered down over the years. If this was a direct sequel just a couple of years after T2, I might have been like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They've killed him! It surprised me. I thought maybe it was a deleted scene from T2 or... You know, obviously, I'm listening to your notes. They had the de-aging effect. I don't know how they got Edward Furlong or how they did that whole scene. Again, I don't know the backstory behind it. I don't know the wrangling, if they could get Eddie Furlong or not. I thought it was interesting. It surely didn't move me as maybe much. The rug wasn't thrown out. It caught me by surprise, but I was rather ho-hum about it, actually.
By ho-hum, what do you mean?
I was like, okay, they killed John Connor. Like, let's keep it moving. Like, I wasn't like, no, I can't. And I should be because I'm as a big Terminator fan as you.
Okay,
but maybe the only thing I'm thinking about is there's been so much time across this franchise, and you've had a couple of real stinker sequels, or they've really messed with the whole John Connor character. I mean, Genesis took it in a completely different avenue. I was like, oh, that's cool. All right, let's see what the rest of the movie has to offer.
See, what you just said, is the attitude I feel we're supposed to have. There's so much out there, from YouTubers to bloggers to people who are saying they've destroyed the entire franchise.
No.
They've killed my childhood. This guy has been the only hope for mankind all this time, and they just kill him? And my answer is, yeah. That's where the story is going. Everybody always says we want something different, and yet here we are. We're serving up something different, and you don't want it. My attitude towards the whole thing was, number one, I knew it was happening going in. I'm not afraid of spoilers. They don't bother me. What? What'd I do?
Yeah, I purposely for this one did not read spoilers.
Most people are like you. I'm too greedy. I can't help myself. I'm fascinated by the whole thing. I love the way it was done immediately. I love the way the movie started with like the old VHS kind of thing over the logos. I thought that was a nice touch. And I won't say I was rooting for John Connor to be killed, but like you, when it happened, I was like, okay, now we're starting on this path. Where's this going to take us? And I really like where it took us.
I was mildly shocked and intrigued. Yeah. Nothing more, nothing less.
But intrigued is enough.
I wasn't thrown and my childhood wasn't ruined because John Connor is no more.
Right. That's the point of it. And why? Well, they say because, and this I agree with, okay? Why did they do it? Because of where it repositions Sarah. Okay, this is now the director, Tim Miller, coming over from Deadpool, which was a huge hit.
Love the Deadpool movies.
Excellent movie.
Love them.
He did not direct Deadpool 2, because of infamous on-set clashes during one, but the movie was still very well received.
Really?
Yeah.
He did not do Deadpool 2.
No, he did not.
I was not aware of that.
I did not know that. When this movie was announced and you found out that James Cameron was producing, not directing, what were your thoughts about that?
I still had a lot of hope. He was connected to the franchise. I would have loved for him to be the director, but as a Terminator fan, James Cameron coming on board in some form or fashion provided me hope that it was going to be a good movie.
Yeah, I agree. I was wondering why he wouldn't choose to direct this, but I guess he's busy with Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 or whatever.
Maybe.
The choice of Tim Miller, give me somebody who has proven that he can make a good movie, and he did that with Deadpool. Unlike the last two movies, the last two Terminator movies, which were directed by, in my opinion, Hollywood hacks.
It was Mick G, and who was the other one?
That was Salvation.
Right. Who did Genesis?
Genesis was a guy named Alan Taylor, who I'd never heard of. It's like those Die Hard movies, the last two. It was like a couple of guys who you never heard of. And sometimes these could be winners, but with franchise movies like this, you need the pros. You need the guys who have proven track records. Okay. You're going to put them at the helm. That's the way I see it. So anyway, Tim Miller is saying it repositions Sarah. When she and John made their own fate at the end of T2, their futures and humanity's timeline also changed. Now, in Skynet's place, there exists an entity known as Legion, wreaking havoc in the future that Grace comes from. That's the story. Now, first I'm going to give you the backlash, and then I want to hear your thoughts. The backlash is, again, you're taking everything that's come before and washing it away and coming up with this new thing. Oh, all of a sudden you're fighting Skynet all this time through all these movies? The answer is no. You fought Skynet 2 movies because this is not taking the previous 3 as canon. So they are coming. Yes, they destroyed Skynet. They destroyed Cyberdyne. And now, if the idea of nuclear war and AI is inevitable, obviously a new company or a new thing is going to emerge later, and that also means that there might be somebody else who would be in John Connor's place. It makes perfect sense, but there's so much backlash over it's like they said they're ignoring Terminator 2, which doesn't make any sense to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, thank you. You're asking me for my opinion. Mother effer. Woo, he's a talker, folks. I actually do have more of a problem of Skynet than actually John Connor. They provided very little details as to Legion. It almost could have been another movie slipped in there where you sort of, I would have been curious to as the beginnings of Legion and where this company, basically you're describing it exactly the way it was presented on air. It was like, oh, the old villain, he's done. And by the way, to sit there and say, no, it was only 2 films. Skynet, that was your villain. And for them to kind of, in a way, flippantly, I understand at the end of T2, but now a new baddie is popped with no backstory, no nothing. At least with John Connor, you get a little clip of a movie. You get a little... Right. It just... I bought into it. Obviously, it sets the tone for the action, but it wasn't really a lot there.
I'll agree with that. It wasn't a problem for me, but why not just say it's Skynet? Skynet's back.
I don't know.
That was my question when watching the movie. Why did they have to create a new thing if they're not even going to create it? They're just going to tell us about it.
Well, aren't you saying at the end of T2, Sarah successfully completes her mission, stops Judgment Day, and there, Skynet was just defeated?
It was Cyberdyne that they destroyed.
Well, Cyberdyne, didn't they? That was the company that controlled the AI, which was Skynet.
But with all the stuff, for example, at the end of T2,
you're telling me PepsiCo and Fanta.
But at the end of Terminator 2,
oh Lord,
at the end of Terminator 2, you think
it's a movie, damn it.
Wait a second. You think that they've destroyed everything with the chips and him sacrificing himself because there's a piece of him that came off in one of the battles in that plant that somebody wrote about. And they're right, because I went back and looked. So one could argue that Skynet would be revved up again by another company.
Okay.
So
I can buy into that.
That's not what this whole thing is about. Yet people.
What is it all about, Andrew?
It's really about our continuous dependence on artificial intelligence to do our shit for us, and that eventually it's going to catch up with us.
Forgetting that heavy-handed message, villain is done, new villain is Legion. You're just like, okay.
But I would have been just fine with it if it was Skynet again.
I didn't ask you that. Ask you that. The movie's plot was old villain defeated, new company sprouts out, they're the bad guys. You were like, okay, great, Legion.
Yeah.
Boo. Okay.
Well, I wasn't boo. I was just like, now give me some action. And I got it.
I didn't ask that. What I'm asking you is you're a nuanced moviegoer.
Okay.
You didn't at some point just go, wait, Skynet's done and now new Legion bad guy? I mean, you didn't question it a little bit?
Because they've always maintained the quote-unquote Judgment Day is inevitable thing. So if it wasn't going to be this person, it's going to be that person. If it wasn't going to be this company, it's going to be that company.
Okay.
Something is going to get us. So I'm good with that. Okay? That doesn't mean I'm jumping for joy. It means I'm fine with it because that's not what I come to see these movies about. That's not what I come to see these movies for. But my thoughts on that are the idea it works. Can you tell me why the killing of John Connor works for you? Or does it?
I would give you pretty much the same. It does work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because of time, and maybe I know that it's retconning the other movies, but because of the John Connor character has been changed, morphed, marginalized. They bring it back. It worked fine for me in the sense I was like, "Ooh, they killed John." It caught me by surprise, but then I was like, "All right, let's bring on the rest of the movie."
What I mean is for the rest of the story. Is it necessary for the story they were trying to tell?
No, I don't believe it was necessary. The young lady, Danny, plays Danny. She's sort of the protagonist for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's fine. She wasn't John Connor level, though. I mean, I bought into more of the augmented. I thought the Mackenzie Davis character,
Grace.
I thought the Grace was excellent.
Yes,
I could see that in the real mythos of the Terminator storyline. I even liked, and I told you I didn't in Gabriel Luna as the bad Terminator. And when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, it looks like just any average young Latino kid, but he worked. He was like I saw him more as a stone-faced, baby-faced killer.
Mm-hmm. But they gave him a little bit of personality.
Yes,
which
they
I
did.
Kinda liked.
Yes, they did. But the Danny character, I saw the little plot twist with her and Grace. I saw that from a million miles away.
I saw everything from a million. miles away.
That one I was telling Marie, it's really her.
Yeah.
It's not her kids.
Right.
I saw that from a million miles away. So I mean. Obviously, they had to base it around. I mean, to me, the Terminator movies at its core are chase movies.
Yeah.
They're Smokey and the Bandits. We got to get this package, which is a person, from point A to point B to safety. Right. And we got this unstoppable killing machine that's the excitement of the movie. Right. So it's essentially the same kind of plot in that sense. They got to get her to safety. She was fine, but I didn't buy into her like I did John Connor.
Yeah,
No.
see, fine's not good enough for a movie like this. And that leads into my thoughts. So my first thought...
And by the way, she did nothing wrong.
No, it was the script. And I'll tell you why I think that's the case. The first thing is, the killing of John Connor was necessary for the story. And here's why I believe that. Okay? Because the story is Sarah Connor's story. They all have been. The Terminator 1, 2, and 3, they really are about Sarah. If John Connor survives, okay, Sarah's got nothing to fight for.
Oh, she's definitely not the tortured soul. That
she's got nothing to fight for. She's just living life. Let somebody else solve this problem. I've done my bid for God and country. Okay, now without John in the picture, she's tortured and she's alone. So she just dedicates her life to just destroying these things as they come. But without that, she's got no purpose. The killing of her son gave her purpose. Now, if John Connor survives, if he's in the movie, it's T2 all over again. Is it not? Protecting John, blah, blah, blah. It's the same movie. That's what people complain about the most. It's too much like this, or it's not enough like this. Make up your goddamn mind.
I definitely agree. It's Sarah Connor's movie.
In the lore of it, that was the catalyst for Sarah's arc in this movie, the death of her son. It was the catalyst for the relationship she had with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, which I loved. But secondly, let's talk about Danny for a second. She's now the savior of humankind. She was not given enough by the script for us to care about her. Let's go back to T2 for a second. When they introduce us to John Connor, who until this point, that's all we've heard about. In T2, they introduce us to John Connor, who until this point we've only heard about. They take their time to show us that he's this little punk who's stealing money, foster kid, always in trouble. So now, once the plot starts moving forward, we're with him. We know him. We understand him. We know who he is. Here, literally 45 seconds after we meet Danny, her family's killed. The plot begins. So we have nothing to care about yet. And we really are never given that chance to meet her and come to understand her. So that's why I believe that we have this blah feeling about Danny, because two reasons. That reason and the fact that we're supposed to accept her taking the place of John Connor. If we were able to meet her and get to know her like we did John, we might have accepted her more.
You mean you didn't
agree with that?
You mean you felt when the dad went to drop off lunch at the factory, that was really the dad dropping off lunch?
Well, that's the thing.
You couldn't read that was the bad Terminator from a million miles away?
No, I read that. That's the problem. When you see that the action is going to start right away, that they're not going to take time for any character development, we're going to be able to see all the twists coming around the corner.
This might be, I won't say controversial, but, it felt so forced with the Latino immigrant family. I felt there was a lot of political agenda in there. Is
that why they didn't spend too much time on it?
I don't know, but
we got it in.
The whole thing with the crossing the border illegally, I just don't want to be preached upon in my movies, and I felt it was a forced attempt at diversity or shoving it down our throat. Now, as a pure character, I do agree. Again, it's similar to what I said about the whole Legion thing. There's just no buildup. She's the anointed one, and could you not read that the brother was expendable? The brother wasn't going to last more than 5 minutes in the movie? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the point. It's like when we see that the movie is going to literally 2 minutes in, the plot begins.
The other thing, and again, this is really small stuff, but she's very small stature, the actress who plays Danny. She's very tiny.
Yes.
I don't think she's more than 5'2", 5'3". She's when I saw her, she did look
she's forgettable.
Like a cute, cuddly kid. I didn't see, and again, you could say, well, John Connor was, Eddie Furlong, but there was an edge there to that character. She was fine, but the leader of the free world against cyborgs, no, not for me. Probably not.
Yeah, she's forgettable. Yeah. Because she's surrounded by Sarah and Grace, we're on board.
Well, I got a lot to say about that.
Okay. Well, actually, let's take Sarah first, because she's the returner. So tell me what you think.
in a nutshell, loved it. Was glad to see her. As the movie wore on, I felt her performance became more of a caricature. Any time to slip in fuck. And she was all just about killing Terminators and really not much else. And she was going to kill Carl. And at first I was like, oh, it's the original badass. I was so happy to see her. And then as the movie wore on, she's just with the scowl. And again, I know torture, but I'm just giving you as it got a little caricature-y for me.
I'll agree.
Wow.
I'll agree that I believe the character in this sequel was underwritten. Too much focus on Grace and Danny, not enough focus on Sarah and Carl. With Terminator, when you have Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger as part of it, you're always going to want to see more of them and less of the others. That's just the way it is. You can't buy in. And that's my theory, because they spent too much time writing action scenes for the others that they forgot about this great dynamic that they had between Sarah and this Terminator, another model who killed her son. There's already the history and now a built-in dramatic tension that should have been the focus of the movie and wasn't.
The movie feels like there could have been the prior movie slipped in there to set up for Dark Fate.
Absolutely. That's how I felt.
Runs right to this culminating, or what apparently looks to be a culminating story. Listen, I loved it.
Yeah.
But by the end of the movie, I was like, oh, she's kind of, I don't say annoying, but everything was like, fuck, I just want to I'll kill you at the end. I'm killing Terminators.
Yeah. I like that.
Like, give her like a half a cigar, like an Arnie character. And it just, believe me, it was great to have her, and I agree it's really her movie, but towards the end.
So now, moving on to Grace, okay, I just want to preface this with a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. You expressed fears to me before going to see the movie that it was going to be this whole woke thing.
Yes.
And that is also a cause of a lot of the backlash, that they are casting females because they have to. They're casting Latinos because they have to. It's like a whole woke thing. I did not feel that while I was watching this movie. But now as we talk about Grace, what are your thoughts?
Well, listen, she has a unique look. I mean, no doubt about it. She's
a very masculine
looking female. She's muscular. She's got nice abs. Now,
no boobs.
I enjoyed her performance. I bought into it. There was one criticism. She's an augmented human, and I felt like the movie couldn't decide. Is she an ass-kicking, indestructible Terminator, or a very fragile human with some slightly enhanced? Because there's certain scenes she looks incredibly like an ass-kicking Terminator, and then she's like, needs a glass of ice water. So
she needs a mani-pedi.
Yeah, I felt like her character could have been a little more fleshed out. Now, if there was a character that was fleshed out, it was Grace's. Gender fluidity beside it, I enjoyed the performance, and I bought into the character.
Okay, good.
Felt like part of the Terminator lore to me.
So were your fears realized, or were they checked at the door?
No, I enjoyed it. I didn't really worry.
It didn't dwell on it, is what you're saying.
Don't get me wrong. Everything is done for a reason, and I felt like maybe that was cast that way to hit all diversity checkpoints and checkboxes. But that aside, she had a fine performance, and I enjoyed the character and enjoyed her performance. So it's all good to me.
Okay, that's interesting. With John eliminated, Sarah truly has nothing to live for. However, she also knows, or at least believes, that the war is still going to happen. When John gets killed, up until that point, they think they've ended it all. They think everything is going to be fine. But now that this new Terminator comes out and kills him, she knows that this shit's still going.
How do they explain that?
Well, they don't really explain it. You have to assume it. At the end of Terminator 2, they believe that they have stopped Judgment Day.
And it's the same model, but not the same individual Terminator from T2.
Exactly. As far as they're concerned, they burned up the chip, they burned up the pieces, so they should never see one of these things again.
So I have one hole that I asked Marie during the movie.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil any of your notes, but
we
understand that the Terminator, who apparently is one, kills John Connor and hides in the bowels of humanity and begins to evolve, which they have referenced in other Terminator movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of becomes an average, everyday U.S. citizen, marries.
He didn't marry.
All right, well, he's in a relationship with a
Right.
female. It's not physical. I'm not sure if the movie makes clear if she's aware that he's a Terminator.
She wasn't.
Okay.
Remember that scene where he tells her,
and they have to leave.
He explains, he's like, someday I'm going to have to leave and I will never be back.
My past will get caught up with me.
And she was okay with it.
If I'm understanding the movie, Carl the Terminator, which is ironic, Carl the Terminator, is he the one that's signaling Sarah with the information about the Terminator attacks?
Yes.
Okay. Here's my question. How is he aware these Terminators are coming and the coordinates? He does explain why he does it, but how would he have that information?
That's a great question. Maybe it's part of the CPU that's in all their brains. Maybe they just know what's going on. They're connected to a network that has all this stuff. Maybe that's the case. I didn't even think to ask that question, but that's a very good question. But I think it's one that could be easily remedied.
And he sets up why, because he explains he wanted Sarah to have purpose after John's death.
That's what I love most about this movie. Even though we saw it coming a mile away, and the only reason we saw it coming a mile away is because they pretty much gave it away in the trailers, which pissed me off.
Which is what?
Which is his purpose, because after he murdered John, his purpose was zero. So automatically, he started to become, just like they said at the end of Terminator 2, if a Terminator could understand the value of a human life, ... As soon as he's done completing his mission, he's now got no purpose, so he's got to go find one. And he does, and through that, and he explains this in the movie in very expositional ways, he finds one, and he grows to start realizing what he took from Sarah Connor. And that dynamic is what I liked most about this movie.
I would love to see that on Netflix. Make that movie.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying if the movie was more about that and less about these two people who we just met.
Well, don't put it in the theater because it won't make a dime.
Right.
It's not going to be a violent movie.
Make a TV series about it.
Because they do reference in Terminator movies that the Terminator can, to an extent, can evolve. It's a machine.
Yes.
But machines can adapt somewhat. That's the movie I'd be interested in seeing. All right, go ahead.
Exactly. You just said it. John's death is the motivating factor.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Thoughts on Carl, the Terminator? Carl he's essentially a family guy. He owns a drapery business. I mean, where they went with that with the whole Terminator character.
I had no problem with it. They probably could have come up with a better name. Like Blade or something, like I don't know, like something like
You're the disease,
Metalhead or something, something. But Carl is just.
How about this name, Marion Cobretti?
Yeah. I was gonna say something about that, but yeah, they could have done better with that. But I guess the point they were trying to make was this guy's new objective was to assimilate into society, and by the time we run into him, he knows what it means to feel, not to be, but to feel human and human frailties. His whole purpose now is to atone for the sin of killing another human life, which to me is why he does what he does, not just with Sarah, but with this family. That's his purpose, is not just to help Sarah, but also to help these people who obviously needed him. I love that dynamic. Talk about taking the character and not repeating yourself. That does it right there. It might not be exactly the way these idiot fans want it, but that's something different, something new. And I love that about it.
Sorry, we're idiot fans.
I didn't call you an idiot fan. We're agreeing on this.
Let's go. I got to terminate some kids downstairs. Let's go. Hit me up.
All right. So we spoke about the woke culture. The chief complaints we talked about John Connor's death. We talked about that. Everybody, of course, is comparing Gabriel Luna to Robert Patrick. Fair or unfair?
I don't have a problem with it. Obviously, there's going to be some similarities there. If you're a fan of the franchise, he's a slender guy. He's not a muscular guy. He's more of a thin, athletic build. And when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh Lord, it's they're going straight for that Patrick kind of vibe." I would have preferred more of a badass, big, hulky looking sort of dude. But I was pleasantly surprised by his performance. He did show a little bit of range, a little nasty streak. I think it's a fair comparison, but he made the role as his own, which is, I think, all you could ask for an actor.
Did they change the character enough?
Did they need to? I mean, the Terminator...
Yeah, I would think so.
Why?
Because it's a new company. It should be more advanced. And for narrative purposes, it should be a different model than Robert Patrick.
It was a different model.
But was it different enough? What do you think? I think it was. I love the double thing. I really like that.
Yeah, visually it gets a little bit... it gets a little bit confusing. Is it really two separate Terminators if you killed one with the other one? So I think it was a little tough to follow on the screen. Is there enough changes? Debatable. I thought as an actor he did enough on his own to make it his own role.
Okay, good. What'd you love the most about this movie?
I mean, I thought some of the set pieces with the action sequences were amazing. And I think they stuck to the lore of the franchise. That's probably what I liked about it the most. And the action pieces, the set pieces were really, really strong.
What'd you like the least?
What I like the least, there's a couple of plot points that they don't really follow through on. I mean, Legion is just sort of crammed in there. Sarah Connor and Carl, some of the things that kind of just swept to keep the movie moving forward. I would say that's probably what I liked the least about it.
Okay. What did I like the most? That they killed John, and here's why. Okay?
Always got to be shocking.
If John had lived, and I'm referring to my notes because I wrote this down because I thought about it.
Is this like your Emancipation Proclamation?
Yes.
If John had lived.
If John had lived, it's either get Eddie Furlong to reprise or recast. The Connors are so iconic, and recasting will and could never work. It didn't work in any of the sequels, and it just can't. Furlong just owned that thing. So, and from what I understand and have seen, is still a complete mess.
Yes.
All right? Could they have worked that into the story? Yes, but that would have eliminated that strange and complicated bond between Carl and Sarah, which the old pros did beautifully, I thought. The movie brought back a heart that was missing in Terminator 3. Even though we both liked Terminator 3, the heart was gone. Salvation was just nothing, and Genesis, there was no heart there either. The heart was back. Like, everything meant something in Dark Fate. The heart, it didn't exist since T2. And as much as I like T3, the heart was gone, probably because we never truly believed that John and Kate Brewster were the future of mankind. They just didn't sell it.
Okay, I'll buy that.
They just didn't sell it. And it wasn't Edward Furlong. So it didn't sell it. So that's what I like. The heart was there. And that is the driving force. What I like the least, the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton are not the centerpiece. You got Hamilton, you got Schwarzenegger, you got Terminator. They need to be the centerpiece. That's what I like the least. I didn't hate it.
How would you move that franchise forward, though? Eventually, you've got to go to younger characters because they're going to be gone.
Very easily. You make it about them. You give them someone to protect. But it's not so much about the person they're protecting. It's about them. It's almost like their parents, mom and dad. And they each have a different viewpoint on how to do this. Take strong, non-lazy writing. You could do it. And then you end it by killing them both and passing the torch to the next generation.
Well,
you spend the movie building up whoever this is who's going to be the future, and that's who's. And if the movie's a hit, that's who's going to take you into the next thing. Let's face it, Schwarzenegger and Hamilton are done. I mean, they're too old.
Not if you saw the end of the movie.
No, but I mean, age-wise, I can't see them moving forward.
I had some thoughts about the end of the movie. I like the ending, but the little coda at the end, this is where the storyline builds in for this, but I don't, these time loop movies, now she's going to go back, sort of interact with Grace to save her so she never dies, and it's sort of a never-ending time loop, and Sarah and Danny go on their next adventure. I mean, they're using that whole time loop element, so you can almost make a case for a built-in sequel every time, because time always repeats itself, and you're coming from the future to the past, and then the people in the past are aware, so they could change the present. Look, if you're a fan of the Terminator, they definitely left the door open for a sequel. Now, you're telling me the movie is and I have read that the movie is underperformed at the box office. I didn't know to what level. Hearing what you told me, it's really underperformed at the box office, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just time, though? I mean, this is an old franchise.
Yes, I have thoughts on that, and I want to save most of it for another podcast because I think there's more to talk about, but I'll just say one thing. The idea of artificial intelligence taking over our lives is no longer frightening to people because AI is so much a part of our everyday lives.
Interesting.
In 1984 and 1991, it was like, wow, could this really happen? Now it's like we talk to people who aren't there. Siri, do this. Alexa, do that. It's sort of lost its relevance. That's why I think it needed more of a revamp than just a continuation. It needed to come up with a bigger threat. That is what's initially keeping people away because it's not must-see movie. It's not urgent to see it, but it's also the online vitriol and the anger and the thing. I just want to respond to the ending thing. What if the ending, because I thought about what would be a perfect ending for this movie. What if at the very end, the coda, even if it was a post-credits scene,
go ahead,
you go back to where it began and you're back in that pizzeria in Guatemala and John Connor's there. End the movie. Cliffhanger. Wait a minute. What's going on here? I thought that would have been cool.
Well, but wasn't Cameron's purpose to really give it a jolt and to move it forward?
Regardless of what Cameron's purpose was, I'm just saying what I thought would have been cool.
That time loop element, there's never
they've
really...
established that anything could happen,
That's what I'm saying. There's never really a conclusion.
Yeah. So you might as well end on some kind of crazy cliffhanger.
Yeah, you could run a episodic television series.
Yeah,
but let me ask you a question. Here's my last question.
Okay.
Whether it's your dad, a friend at work, whoever, Terminator Dark Fate, you telling them to go see it?
Yes.
Whether or not I've even been seen it. See, that's the other thing. You don't need to see. I don't think you need. Do you need to be aware to see the prior Terminator movies to enjoy this movie? I don't think you do.
No, but I would tell them
maybe
to see it.
If you're a fan, that they rush through.
I would tell them to see it.
Yeah.
I would tell them to see it. I would tell them to see 1 and 2. Do what the filmmakers want. Avoid 3, 4, and 5 because they really have nothing to do with the story. I think the fact that we're so familiar with those other sequels probably hurt our enjoyment of this. That's why I thought it was a mistake to completely ignore them. You got to respect what these characters have been through.
A lot of these franchises do.
I understand. I just thought that was a mistake because they do exist. We can't get it out of our head. There were times in this movie when I said, wait a minute. In Terminator 3, they said, oh, wait, no, we're supposed to forget about Terminator 3. They could have included Terminator 3 in that because Terminator 3 is not hated. It's not loved, but it's not hated. Salvation and Genesis are hated, so fine, get rid of those. But Terminator 3 at least continued point A to point B thing. Yeah. But we're going to end this right now, but I really do want to talk to you about the power of these YouTubers and the power of online, just regular people, not paid critics, affecting the movie business. Whether it's Terminator, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Rambo, whatever it is, these people have a power that is only getting stronger. And I want to talk to you about whether that's a good thing, a bad thing, or whatever. So we're gonna go over that.
And may I suggest for a future podcast the movie that I'd like to sit down and break down? I'd be curious. I'll see you at some point. We'll chat. Let's break down The Irishman.
Yes, well, we haven't seen it yet, so when we do, we will. But hopefully before the end of this trip, we'll be able to sort of put the coda on this podcast by talking about what I just talked about.
Coda it is.
I'd like to do that. So, now, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Rip 'em! This has just been an abortion of an ending.
Sorry, we're just having technical problems. This is a new podcast.
Mike Munchlevy just deleted us off his Facebook.
Anyway, that last few seconds of silence was our silent prayer for the victims of Judgment Day.
That's right.
But now we are
bless.
going downstairs to play with the kids.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. But we'll be seeing you hopefully very shortly. We're going to Billy Joel tonight. We're looking forward to that. It's going to be a great weekend. And with that, on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, sir.